Welcome to the Branding Room Only podcast, where we share career stories, strategies, and lessons learned on how industry leaders and influencers have built their personal brands. Now, let's get started with the show. Hi, everybody. It's Paula Edgar, your host of Branding Room Only, and I'm excited to be talking to my guest today about personal branding. Who is she, you ask? She's Pallavi Jain, and she is an experienced HR leader with 20 years expertise across various sectors, including a decade at Harvard University, multinational corporations, manufacturing, and the nonprofit world. She is the founder of the Lead From Within program and creator of the ATM Framework for your personal growth and true empowerment, and a TEDx speaker on the same topic. Her work helps individuals and leaders to self-lead when they lead within to find joy, genuine joy, success, and fulfillment from within. And we all need that, especially these days. Pallavi, welcome to the Branding Room.
Thank you so much, Paula. I am so excited and thrilled to be here and looking forward to our conversation.
Same. So tell me, what does a personal brand mean to you? How would you define it?
Yeah, I was thinking about that a little bit, and I feel like brand is how others perceive us,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it includes, I think, how we show up for others in various ways. It is kind of your status in other people's eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And you're creating your brand consciously or unconsciously with everyone who is around you, whether it's personal relationships or professionally, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that.
Um, yeah.
I love the call out to conscious and unconscious, right? Because when I talk about branding all the time, I always say it's helpful to have a strategy, right? Versus to just kind of let it happen. My mother used to always say, you can be the wind or you can be the leaf. And I love thinking of all of us as we have the ability to be the wind. So tell me about yourself. How would you describe yourself in 3 words or short phrases?
Oh, geez. Okay. I'm going to try to not say what I want others to see me like, but I
Okay.
would say honestly what I think I am. So I
Okay.
think one, definitely anybody who knows me can say this, that I'm a true optimistic.
Mhm.
I truly believe that everything happens for a reason and for our good. So that's definitely one. The second is, I think, love. I was thinking, like, maybe I should say empathetic and all of that, but that's for other people to determine. But I think for me, I do feel love for, people around me, for everything around me. I mean, most days we are human, but but deep down, I do feel genuine love for life,
Mhm.
And I think for that reason, I also see the good in others
Mhm.
because I feel that. And I think resilience is probably the other word because I do feel I'm very adaptable and flexible. And I would
Mhm.
add one more word, which
Sure.
is expressive, because I think I'm very expressive and animated, as you know. So, so I
I
think
love
that's how I would define me in those words.
I love those, and I especially love the sort of sandwiching of optimist and resilient, right? Because, we, especially now, we need all of those things to navigate the world. So, do you have a favorite quote or a motto that helps you to like navigate life?
Yes, I think motto kind of keeps changing for me based on what phase of life I am. But I think there has been this one quote that actually my arts teacher just told me. I was in third or fourth grade, and she probably doesn't even know how much that moment had an impact on me. But the quote is like, "Life is like an untrodden mass of snow. Step on it as you like, but every mark will show." And
Mhm.
this resonates with me in, two ways. One, that you are responsible for what happens in your life and the choices you make.
Mhm.
And second, that we all leave a mark in this world in our own ways.
Mhm.
So I think
Mhm.
that's what beauty, like I feel beautiful about this code, and it keeps me grounded in a way that the choices of my life are mine and I cannot hold anyone else responsible for that.
I love that for multiple reasons, including the fact that it rhymes. It's so true that we can determine our impact to the things that we have control over that we should be thinking about, which is going to lead really well into our conversation a little bit later on. So, do you have a hype song, something that when they're going to get full Pallavi coming on the stage or in the room, what's playing in your head?
Yes, yes. And I think there are a couple of them that may, I don't know if you would like them, but I feel pepped up when I'm hearing.
Yeah.
So one is Katy Perry Roar, one is Baby I'm a Star.
Prince? That's
You like that too?
that's my song.
Oh, really? Awesome.
I love
Well,
it.
doesn't surprise me. That's why we're here talking. And I think there is one Bollywood song also
Oh,
that I just love. It's "Love You Zindagi," and Zindagi means life. So I just absolutely love this song. When I'm like feeling down or I'm going in the car and I want to feel the energy and the vibe, I just put on that song and I'm just in my happy zone. So these are some of the songs I could think of right away.
I love those, and I can't wait to add them to the playlist because I love it. All right. So tell me, how did you grow up, and how do you think that shaped your brand?
Good question. I grew up in India
Hmm.
and I then came to US about 20 years ago.
Hmm.
And I think it shaped my brand in making me, like I said, more resilient as I had to constantly adapt and be flexible with changing needs around me, with how I want people to perceive me or how I wanted to always fit in the beginning. And
Hmm.
we'll talk a little bit more about that how it creates like, from you actually away from your personal brand and away from who you really are. But I think for me, more than the geographical location, it
Hmm.
is really the people around me who shaped me today, who I am.
Hmm.
Which, if you think from now a scientific point of view, it makes
Hmm.
sense because everything literally that we are taking in through our five senses is
Hmm.
always getting recorded in our memory,
Hmm.
whether we are conscious of it or not. You know,
Right.
there was I was reading this another research, and this was very fascinating research they did. So there was a guy to whom Chinese translations were played while he was in deep sleep, and
Okay.
then they took him into an hypnosis session after he of course he woke up, and then questions were asked of him, and he could recite the same translations even though he didn't even understand the language.
Really?
Yes. And that, like, I'm like, "Oh, geez." So it matters who we surround ourselves with.
Hmm.
It also comes down to what content we consume, as it
Yeah.
greatly shapes us and our
Yeah.
perception of now the current reality that we are facing in the present moment.
That is wild and also scary. Right.
Yes.
Especially when you
Yes.
think about social media, news that we
Yes. And
consume,
what
and
we
like,
consume all day
yeah,
long, right?
yes, yes, yes. Oh, wow. Okay, so you told me about where you grew up, coming here. Tell me about your career journey.
Yes. For me, I mean, I was a typical Indian kid with Indian parents who wanted their kid to be either a doctor or an engineer. So I became an engineer, and I joined the workforce as an engineer, but I was not the one to be sitting behind the computer and doing coding. So I truly found the HR person in me. I started collaborating with them. Then I did my MBA in human resources, and there I was. My HR journey started.
Yeah.
And then I came to US, and that's really where, I really created roots in HR leadership with,
Mhm.
I was there with Harvard for 10 years as the head of HR there for a research center that they have. And that gave me a lot of exposure. It was a very diverse environment. So I could really learn a lot of different types of perspectives and
Mhm.
people and how they showed up. So that was a really amazing experience. Then I
Mhm.
had worked in manufacturing, nonprofit, and now recently in the energy sector. But as all of this was happening, there was also this, like I told before, like I
Mhm.
felt because I wanted to show up the way how I wanted others for me to show up, I felt I lost myself. So
Mhm.
8 years ago, that personal transformation journey started where I was like, no, this is not who I am.
Mhm.
With that, I just started reading some books. And then I am an engineer, so I have that research analytical bent of mind. So I was really fascinated with neuroscience. And then I truly learned, Paula, that there is so much that we don't know about ourselves. And
Mhm.
that really made me sad and also intrigued that, why do we not know this? And
Mhm.
why is this not taught in schools? And why am I like now, all these years later, need to unlearn and relearn to really take charge of myself and
Mhm.
be happy and be fulfilled? So that's kind of how this journey started, which led to then the, founding Lead from Within and then
Mhm.
creating the ATM framework using some of the tools, some of the things that I had learned, I have applied, and then it was really well received with people who I gave this program to. So
Mhm.
that's kind of how this, like I said, the life always have a plan for you and
Mhm.
you just never know. If you look back now,
Yeah.
every single thing that happened in your life prepared you for this moment today. It really
Mm-hmm.
does.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um,
And if you're not prepared, it's not this moment for you.
exactly. Exactly.
Yes. No, I can't wait to jump into talking more. I want folks to hear because this is what intrigued me, wanted me to have you on the podcast. But I want to ask you about what you were saying essentially is as you were coming up and figuring out what people wanted to see for you in order to navigate spaces, you were less authentic than you, right? And then you kind of found your way back to authenticity.
Yes.
And for personal branding, authenticity is the core of personal branding. So when you think about who you were then and the experience and journey you had, anything come to mind in terms of advice for folks who are trying to navigate that definition of their brand and authenticity?
Absolutely. And I would just go back to what you mentioned, like authenticity is so important to the brand. And then I'll share maybe a couple of tips. So
Sure.
I also believe that for creating an effective brand,
Mm-hmm.
and that we are not just talking about business context, we are talking
Mm-hmm.
about how people see you, they feel you, they receive you,
Yep.
right? We need to have clarity about how we want to be perceived and
Mm-hmm.
how we show up for others, because that's how you're building the status, right? Which, by the way, should be totally aligned and in full honesty to who we really are. It feels simple to do that, but it can be hard sometimes because most of us don't invest enough time with the most important person in our life,
Mm-hmm.
ourselves,
Us. Yep.
right? We are busy and lost in this, like you earlier said, overstimulated,
Mm-hmm.
hustling, buzzing life,
Yep.
situations, people, things around us, that we lose touch with who we are.
Mm-hmm.
So if you pause and think about it, that is pretty sad.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the problem is, if I don't know myself, if I don't have clarity about what really matters to me,
Mm-hmm.
then what you put out there is not clear. And your authentic self that people could resonate with
Mm-hmm.
actually is
Yes.
puzzled and convoluted.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, again, coming back to consciousness, if
Yeah.
we are not conscious by rooting ourselves within in how we show up for others and create that personal brand consciously,
Mm-hmm.
guess what? It is unconsciously still getting created.
Yep.
But now without our permission or
Mm-hmm.
without alignment with who we really are.
Mm. So true. I mean, so true. Like the clarity and the consciousness and in all what you're saying about the kind of the buzz around things, I think about that and I think about how that impacts everyone, especially now, but really, really impacts women, right?
Yes,
Who are
yes,
often adapting to fit into external, expectations rather than sort of the who they are. I mean, to your point, you started this process a while after you sort of showed up in a place and said, this is what I got to do to connect, but that might not have
yes.
been what you truly were. How Again, back to you must have all the answers. Tell us
So,
how do folks break the cycle? How do they show up authentically? I have thoughts around this, but I want to hear because I think people learn from stories, right? So how? Tell me.
yes. So I think first of all, you asked me previously, like, some tips from
Yeah.
my journey. So
Yeah.
I think first going to that, two other quick lessons from my life about how we show up for others and build that status is sometimes when we show up for others by doing something for them, right? It could be listening to them, doing something, giving advice, or in my business, showcasing what I have to offer in the business context.
Mhm.
Don't focus on what you think they need in that situation,
Mhm.
but focus on what they truly need from you.
Mm.
We often try to help someone because we think they need that. So
Mhm.
don't assume, I
Mhm.
think, and if you don't know, just simply ask,
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
I think it is very important in creating your personal brand and how you truly genuinely show up for others.
Mhm.
That's
Mhm.
how you build that status. That's how you build that brand. And don't assume. So simply asking is powerful so you can show up for them in a meaningful way. And the
Mhm.
second thing is, if for creating your own brand, your personal brand, sometimes we try to mimic others
Mm.
or to be everything to everyone. And
Mhm.
that is simply not possible. You and I know that, right?
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
cannot please or resonate with everyone.
Right.
So be yourself,
Yeah.
and you could learn tools from others or
Mhm.
frameworks from others to leverage your personal brand. That is what you take from them. But in that process, don't get lost in becoming someone else.
Mhm.
There can only be one Mel Robbins or Paula Edgar.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
can learn some skills and frameworks from them, but
Yeah.
I'm not you, right?
Yep. Yep. Yep.
So be yourself and trust that your people and audience will find you.
I often say, take inspiration, not imitation. Inspiration, not
Exactly.
imitation. And that's
Exactly.
important because, I think there's too many people trying to be who they're not, thinking that's how to connect. And it's
Yes.
not, the folks that you mentioned, like Mel Robbins and other folks, they are themselves, right? They bring them
Exactly.
to the table. I love that.
Honestly, that is your
Mhm.
only leverage to stand
Mhm.
out by
Mhm.
being yourself.
Mhm.
But now imagine if that is distorted,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
If I don't know who am I or I am scared to be myself, then what are you offering them?
Right.
So I think
Right.
self-doubt, coming back to women,
Mhm.
self-doubt has almost no space in creating your brand, but
Mhm.
the reality is our lived experiences and our community creates this self-doubt in us, which starts this negative self-talk unconsciously. And I
Mhm.
actually go into the inner science of all of this in my workshops
Yeah.
because I know why this happens and how
Mhm.
can we take charge now. So because I think my work with Lead from Within is to understand this inner technology. You can't
Mhm.
use a technology if you don't know how it works.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
it is really running in the background without my permission.
Uh-huh.
And how do I take charge of it and empower myself to do what I truly want to do?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
especially for women, like, we're coming back, we're often trying to fit in and do things that don't really define us. But
Yeah.
what others expect from us, we don't even investigate sometimes
Mhm.
what we truly want to do.
Yep.
We want to
Yep.
be accepted, we
Mhm.
want to be respected, and we keep doing the things that we think are expected from us.
Yeah.
Our brand, our identity truly shines when we are not afraid to be ourselves and when we align
Mhm.
with what we truly want to do.
Oh, I
Right?
love that. I
Right? Because
think
I
that's
think that why is so important.
so, so, so important. And then your point about, what society does, what our cultures do in terms of how it makes us internalize that self-doubt to the point of the fact that we're always having data written on our right on our hardware. That is so true. That is so true.
Yes.
So tell me about leading from within and the ATM framework for personal growth and empowerment. What is it? And how do you think that can lead to the strengthening of personal? I have some thoughts. I have some thoughts after having watched your TED Talk. I have some thoughts about this. So let me hear you talk about it.
Yes, absolutely. So, definitely your own confidence and conviction, first of all, is everything. How you show up for others and how they perceive you, that is your personal brand.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe now the only way to get ahead of this constant inner dialogue, to not get lost in this overstimulated world with the dings and the buzz and that demands our attention all the time, and to reduce stress and burnout, because that is another reason why we can't think clearly
Mm-hmm.
and that creates this clouded perception of our current reality. We're not really seeing the reality as it is. We are seeing it with the lens of our lived experiences, our memories, and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
You can only get out of that by leaning within and understanding and connecting with your inner intelligence. So, there is this inner treasure of empowerment and intelligence waiting to be discovered.
Mm-hmm.
And when we are leading in this world feeling whole and fulfilled and connected inside,
Mm-hmm.
there is no place for fear or judgment or validation or blame or
Mm-hmm.
feeling stuck or loneliness, which is, by the way, is another epidemic that's happening
Yeah.
because you have everything that you need within you. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the whole premise of lead from within, right? And when you really lead from within, you really understand that all those answers, all those fear or anxieties or all the good and the bad is
Yeah.
coming from within you.
Mm-hmm.
And the ATM framework helps you because I think for me, yes, I'm an, HR professional and I do all this inner work and everything. But again, I'm also an engineer. So for me, the practicality of all of this is very important because way too often, Paula, you and I and so many other more women, other people out there, we all know what's the right thing to do,
Mm-hmm.
but we still don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
knowing is there. A lot of things that we talk about, other than, of course, diving into the science, we
Yep.
know all these things. But how do I make it happen? How do I practically implement it? And that was the struggle. And I still struggle with a lot of these things. I still have self-doubt many times. And then I have to remind myself my own, training and my own things that I teach others that because they're so hardwired in us.
Yeah.
So then ATM framework, I felt was something that I created and I introduced in my TED talk as well, is it gives you these 3 micro steps that you can take in any moment to be in charge and intentionally choose what you really want to do, which is so important. I think ultimate fulfillment only comes from, like, when are we happy? When what's happening around us is what we want.
What we want.
Then we're happy that we're in the happy state. And when we're stressed or when we're upset is because we think something is not going the way we want it to go.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
Yes.
So that fulfillment is coming from within you. And you can only be fulfilled when you're truly doing what you really want to do. And you find that purpose. Not even purpose is a very broader word, but you find that joy, that strength, that something that is your passion, that ignites you, that ignites that fire in you, right?
Yeah.
So let's go into the framework quickly. And so basically, ATM, I am saying, like you go to an ATM machine and you cash out, you have an internal ATM. Okay. And to tap into this inner resource, this inner intelligence that you do. And now this ATM is our 3 steps. So A, for example, starting from our first step is arrive in the present moment. Because real action can only happen in this moment. Everything else is hallucination. It's simply mental projections of thought and emotion, right? It's not real time.
Right.
I have a podcast coming with Paula. If I start thinking about, okay, what happens if my mic doesn't work, if my video doesn't work, and I am stressing about an imaginative experience that has not even happened.
Yeah, that sounds like my therapist, by the way. Yes.
But there are, and then there are various tools we teach in our workshops and in my sessions to help you now. Okay, I understand I need to arrive in the present moment, but how do I do it?
Right. Right.
So then we teach them some practical tools and tips and micro steps that they could do to start this journey of transformation, because action can only be taken in the present moment. So the first step is, and like I talk in my TED talk, if you just simply ask, am I present? You're present.
Yeah. So in everybody, y'all, in the TED talk, this is the part that I laughed out because, Pallavi asked, close your eyes, are you present? And you can hear the audience be like, whoa, I'm not present. And I'm sure that is the case for so many people because we're always thinking about everything else. So I love that. I love that.
Yes. Yes. No, absolutely. And the moment you say I'm not present, you're actually present.
Right. Right.
So that's the first step, ATM, arrive in the present moment. You are in here. You're in the present time, in the real time. Second is T, which is take responsibility and know what truly matters to you. We stay stuck and cannot get out of it as we are busy blaming someone else or the situation. And this takes away the control from you. Somebody else is driving the narrative at that time, not you. I tell my kids, it's like a remote control and somebody is changing the channels of joy and misery and they have your remote control.
Oh, I love that.
Right?
I love that. Yes. Take back your remote control.
Yes. And I mean, the external world is not always going to happen according to you. Come on. We all know it.
Yeah.
It's just not possible. But at least what's happening within you should be in your control.
I love that.
Right? So I think that's the first thing. And the second step is to taking that responsibility that what can I do about it? And if I cannot do anything about it, then your response is to let it go. Right?
That's the scary part.
Sometimes response can be no action.
Yeah. Yes.
Right? So whatever that is, but you're in the present moment. You're not driven by the memory or the imagination. You're already arrived in the present moment. And in that moment, you're taking responsibility and decide in that moment. So for example, you're in a conflict. Decide if your being right is more important or that relationship is more important.
Oh, marriage advice. Hello.
I wasn't talking about my husband, by the way.
I was talking about mine. I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
But seriously, right?
Mhm,
Because
mhm,
we
mhm.
often do that. At work,
Yeah.
we do that. We
Yes.
we are in our with a team member, and then we want to show that we have it all together. It's coming
Mhm.
from our own self-doubt.
Yeah.
That's the root. It's
Yeah.
coming from we want to feel validated, so we want to be
Mhm.
right.
Yeah. Yes.
So
Yes.
it's deep rooted in, again, it's all being created within you. It's not coming from anybody else. It's not coming from that person. That person is bringing that trigger in you
Mhm.
because you have some emotion in there that's
Mhm.
bringing that trigger in,
Yeah.
that's triggering you.
Yeah.
So again, knowing what is it that truly matters to me. So
Mhm.
that's the second step that focuses your attention to your intention, kind of, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So arrive in the present moment,
Yeah.
take responsibility and know what truly matters to you. And then comes the last step, which is M. Now make a conscious choice,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
In creating brands, whatever you're doing, do it for the right reason. The right why is so critical. Don't just do it because everyone else is doing.
Mhm.
Introspect, and if it aligns with your passion, with your strengths,
Mhm.
then do it. So the why is super critical that you took care of in the second step. And
Yes.
now you know this is what matters to me. I have arrived. I am taking responsibility. Now all is left is in that micro moment, making a conscious choice.
Mhm.
Because I truly believe that your future and your life is created in being fully aware in these day-to-day moments of life
Mhm.
and making these micro decisions and choices consciously.
Mm. I 100% agree. And when I was watching this TED talk and thinking about how this framework connects to branding, I thought of it in a similar way, like the ATM and the withdrawal piece. Like you walk into the ATM vestibule, that's step number one, right? That you've got in there,
Exactly.
and then you're looking to see what's in your account, right? Like what, right? And what is important to me? What am I going to buy? How much do I have to take out in order to figure it out? And then do it. Like then you're going to actually do the draw. And for the branding piece of it, it is saying, like I started off with, don't just let it happen to you. Choose what's going to happen to the extent that you can decide what's going to. And why that I think is so powerful is that anytime we slow down, we do better. This I
Absolutely.
know for sure, right? And not
Absolutely.
enough of us really take time to self-assess what's going on and what's going on with us too. So when I thought about that, the branding piece, because I always say the first part of good branding is to understand where you are, who you are right now.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
In
Hmm.
anything you
Yeah.
do. If
Yes.
because we otherwise we're just running by accident, doing things by accident, right? And
Exactly.
we've
Exactly.
spent enough years of our life doing that. So it is time to take charge, to be intentional
Yes.
about what we truly want to do. And the biggest thing about this framework, which I now hate, I didn't actually cover it in the talk. I should have, but I'll
Hmm.
cover it here.
Okay.
The beauty of this framework is the more you use it
Hmm.
to make this internal withdrawal from your ATM, the more it replenishes your
Hmm.
internal ATM. How?
Mm.
Because nature is built on the basic principle of demand and supply. I'll give
Hmm.
you a basic example. When a mother breastfeeds a baby,
Hmm.
the more the baby drinks,
Yeah.
the
We
more
make.
milk is produced.
Yes. Hmm.
Same way, the more you use your internal ATM for self empowerment and taking charge of your life to
Hmm.
self lead, the more control and power you will feel, and you can then keep using it for bigger and bigger things in your life.
Mm. That's so powerful because and when you and I first were connected, we kind of talked about this where this framework can work for anybody who has a title as leader, but also who is leading from all of the different ranks of leadership within, right? Because I believe you can lead from anywhere. So,
Exactly.
and that is great. And I can imagine the powerful transformations it brings for organizations when everyone within an organization is thinking, I have ownership, I have agency, and I'm a leader, and I can find my leadership space from this. And so it's really why I was like, whoa. And so that self-leadership piece is really what shapes your personal brand, right? It's saying, I am going to
Absolutely.
choose and I'm going to show up differently or better or right, whatever the thing is that you come from it because that you have access to that information. So, so powerful, so powerful, so powerful.
Yes.
So what is not powerful is what I want to get to. When you think of, you had, over 20 years of experience in working in HR and all these different places, when you think about leaders who have maybe shown up where their brand was not great, when they have not led from within, Where are some of the challenges that you see? Like, what are some of the mistakes that you see leaders making often?
One you kind of mentioned
Mm.
is that because we always feel we don't have enough time,
Yeah.
we're
Mhm.
always rushing things.
Mhm.
I have been in those rooms where I have seen executive leaders sitting there, they're doing strategy. Okay,
Mhm.
now everybody's overwhelmed. They didn't really get time to really give it an intentional thought
Process.
of what they want to do. They have a
Mhm.
board meeting in 2 days and they're literally trying to scramble and put something together as strategy,
Yeah.
which now they have to sell to their employees and communicate about,
Mhm.
which they don't truly even align with
Right.
because it's all rushed. And so I think a lot of us are wasting our time on unimportant stuff.
Mm.
We really are. I still do that, by the way, guilty charge. I mean, you open Instagram to check one thing, and
Mhm.
then 1 hour later, you're still scrolling. That's 1 hour of your precious time that you just lost in, mindless wandering on
Mhm.
this. It's never ending. And then
Right.
also consuming all the thing what lot we talked about. You are
Mhm.
putting in information that may not help you just in
Right.
the long run. So I think leaders have to be even more intentional about this because,
Mhm.
whether they like it or not, their actions impact not just them, but many others that are looking up to them.
Right.
And I was not that great leader all the time as well. I made mistakes too, because again, I have an image of how I've seen my leaders do, and I started replicating the same thing.
Mhm.
So I think it's important again, and when you lead from within, when you understand really the science, I
Mhm.
think it also makes you more empathetic because you don't now blame someone else for the way they're showing up. So for me now, if
Mhm.
somebody is really angry,
Yeah.
my immediate reaction, maybe because I'm wired that way, is I
Mhm.
get upset. But
Yeah.
then very quickly I find my center that actually if this person is being so angry, that means there must be so much pain and turmoil inside this person,
Mhm. Mhm.
which gives me a chance to actually pause, not react. I'm still going to do the right thing. I'm not going to, you have also responsible as a leader,
Mhm.
responsibility to do certain things, which I will, but it would be more intentional.
Yeah.
So I think intention comes with it, more grounding comes with it. You are
Mhm.
able to create response flexibility, which I
Mhm.
call like, when you're doing mindfulness, when you're training your mind, when you're doing those neural connections,
Yeah.
that space between the stimulus and the reaction increases.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
by the way, I still lose it with my kids sometimes. So I get there. I told my daughter the other day, okay, you have to call out when I'm not doing that. And she's like, Mommy, do you want to take a minute? I'm like, yes, thank you for that reminder. So I think it's
Yes, they will
also
remind you.
knowing, yeah, so I think it's also knowing that nobody is perfect. That was
Right.
one mistake I did. I always wanted to show up as a leader who have it all together, who cannot make a mistake. I don't know, it was the women, I don't know what it was, but I always wanted to be validated, always wanted to be seen as competent and, just like I want somebody else to show up. But it's not fair.
Mhm.
One, because you can never live up to that expectation that you have created for yourself.
So
And
true.
second, you're teaching the wrong things now to the younger generation who are seeing you and they would try to imitate the same thing like I
Mm.
did.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I think that's why authenticity in that way is so important for a leader, saying, like, you know what? I teach this concept, flip the lid. We didn't cover it here, but
Mhm.
I got upset
Mhm.
and I'm sorry I did that. But I had this thing from home that I was still thinking. Do you know how much power there is to that? Because that would give them the permission ticket or slip for
Mhm.
being, admitting their mistake and being vulnerable and being there and saying that, I messed up. I'm sorry.
It's so true. And I connect with this both as a leader and a parent, right? I said to my daughter the other day, because I snapped at her, I just had a lot going. I snapped at her and I said to her, I called her and said, I'm sorry that I snapped on you. And I was like, you should thank my therapist because I can't even think about my parents even trying to form their mouths to apologize to me. But it's also that continued self-worth to say that, to your point, I believe in striving for excellence at all time, and that you can't hit perfection, but you can always strive for excellence, right? And part of excellence
Absolutely.
is saying, I didn't do well there. I'm going to do better as I go forward, right? So we're human.
Right.
We're human.
Right. Right.
Wow.
And I think there's also I was listening to someone else the other day. I don't remember who it was, but
Mhm,
they also mentioned like, also being open in your relationships with
mhm,
your partners, with your parents sometimes, it could be any of those relationships who you interact with in a day-to-day life,
mhm.
is being honest and tell them that, hey, you know what? I'm not at 100 today.
Yeah,
And I'm feeling this way, and I'm sorry, just give me some grace. And once you do that, the other person does that too. I think that's very healthy.
I agree with that. It does activate that empathy trigger, which we all want, right? I think empathy leads directly into I'm being seen, which
Yes.
is a part of our, I think, human nature. I studied anthropology as an undergrad, and part of how you build trust is, when you're looking at someone, sometimes when you sort of see their teeth, there's a bunch of things that are writing data for somebody about you without you even having to say anything. But then when you add that additional piece of, I see you, I get it, and can you see me? Can you get it too? Then it changes and it brings you a little bit closer. The work that I have done with organizations around, inclusion, it's
Yes.
how are you leading to see, because no matter what, regardless of what's happening in the world, a good leader has to be equal to an inclusive leader. Like it's no longer an option. And you think about inclusion not because, I have this group in my place or that group. It's because everyone wants to be fully heard and fairly treated. They want to be seen exactly, and so that is including the person who is leading.
And you mentioned inclusion, and we mentioned women too. I'll share another one quick thing. So
Sure.
our memory, like I said, is impacts our current perception. Okay.
Hmm.
And that's a problem because that's the first step of how you would interact and engage with someone, right? How you perceive the situation, how you perceive the other person. And
Right.
that's mostly clouded because
Mhm.
of our memory and lived experiences.
Yeah.
Now, it can be that intricate. Actually, generational memory also have impact on you.
Oh.
So, yes, so there was an experiment that was conducted. Deepak Chopra did it in his lab. And they basically, what they did is they took a bunch of mice, okay?
Hmm.
And then they gave them wintergreen to smell, okay?
Hmm.
And right after that, they gave them electric shock. And then some of the mice
Hmm.
died, okay?
Hmm.
And then they saw the effect for next generation, for example, their, next generation. And then they gave them wintergreen and they would start running with fear,
When they smelled it.
expecting
Hmm.
that wintergreen, they associated wintergreen with danger.
Hmm.
And that went to 7 generations.
Wow.
So
Wow.
when we talk about women pain, women feeling not empowered, feeling self-doubt, a lot
Hmm.
of that is also coming from generational memory because yes, we are actually very lucky to be in this era
Hmm.
where we are finding our power back. We can, kind of like even express ourselves how we want to be. But
Hmm.
our mothers, their mother, the generation that we see, there was a lot of pain or resentment or
Yeah.
not feeling happy and fulfilled. So all of that also, so that's how intricate this technology is.
Wow.
And then we're trying to figure things out and snap and trying to be then overstimulate us with all the other stuff that's happening around us. So it's prime time that we connect with ourselves and truly understand and detach ourselves from these men because I think the beauty of awareness is when you see it,
Hmm.
then this melts away. Then it doesn't have, when you create this space between this is happening and I'm just watching it, it
Hmm.
melts away and it doesn't have that much impact on you.
Right. That getting present in that and understand. I do think it is, it's a powerful framework that you have developed. As you were talking, I was thinking about a lot of things because I was not present. I was doing everything. I was like, I want to ask all these other questions. And one of the things that came up for me when you were talking about that generational trauma that passes down is I saw a documentary. It was Diane von Furstenberg's documentary. And for all of you who haven't watched it, it's awesome.
I'm writing it down right
Yeah,
now.
it is great. And she talks about her mother was in I can't remember the country, but she was in one of the concentration camps.
Okay.
When she was pregnant with her, that trauma that she experienced. So she talks about having known her mom's trauma, her mother's felt the trauma, and then how she consciously tried to not give that same trauma, but in some ways, because she's human, she did without even knowing. And other ways she was able to own. And I just kept thinking about that. But the piece that connected for me was that awareness, right? That getting clear. And so many folks are either scared to or not able to self-assess and sit and say, both, framework 1 and 2, right? The here I am, but also what's going on. And so every January, I do a free session for anybody on the internet who wants to do it. It's my annual intention and goal setting session. And part of it is to be able to say, stop,
Yep.
right? Whatever you're doing, reflect, right? And then think, how am I here and where do I want to be a year from now? And I love this framework in terms of thinking about it's very much aligned. When I think about that self-awareness piece, and we kind of went into the leaders and what they maybe have not done well. I wonder what your sort of pitch is, how you pitch maybe to companies around why this is a key. Like why they need to make sure folks are incorporating this and how it can be transformative to organizations in terms of getting this.
Yes, and I think you're absolutely right. A lot of leaders actually don't see the connection because they're looking for, again, the buzz things. Okay, do the project management training, give them the leadership framework.
Right.
Well, these are all frameworks external that the user is using. Now, if the user doesn't know what they want, the framework is going to not do that for them.
Right.
And that's where we are struggling because we have all this human potential inside our organizations. Everybody wants one thing, and you said it. We all want to feel valued. We all want to feel empowered.
Yeah.
So the question is, if we can give them that, just imagine how joyful and giving these people would be and how they would show up for one another. I know it's kind of, I'm an idealistic, I'm an optimistic. I see that great world where everybody just we are cooperating. We're not in competition. There is enough for everyone. Everybody has their own unique style and thing that they're going to bring. So when you create that culture, which is made up of people, you see how we interact and show up for each other. When we are sorted and fulfilled within, we are able to being, cooperation and empathy comes naturally. And if our leaders now the other issue is if our leaders and managers are stressed and burnt out all the time, how are they making effective decisions?
Are they making
effective decisions? That will impact your bottom line, not just today, 5 years from now.
Yes. Yeah.
Because they are not even, I have seen them, okay? I have seen and I've been in various organizations. I was one of them. And I know how we sometimes make decisions, and that is not optimal because we're not really taking into account what is the value here? What are we really even trying to get? We get into these fancy things of creating the vision statement, mission statement. Yes, okay, great. But do we understand what we're doing and why we're doing it? Right. So I think it really helps you to get rid of this mental chatter that's already always there and communicate and make decisions effectively. Reduce stress and burnout in your organizations. I mean, how is this sustainable? 77% of employees and workplace people feel stressed today.
Wow.
I mean, I know this stuff and I apply and I still get stressed sometimes. So I'm not saying like it's a magic solution, but it is definitely better than how I was 8 years ago. Right? Yeah. So it is a journey, and people do have the other thing I do want to say that yes, organizations can provide you this. At the end of the day, it is you who have to make the action.
Yeah.
People say I have executive coach for 8 years and and it's a fancy thing now to also say I have an executive coach, by the way.
Yeah.
But nothing is going to change unless you start applying what you're learning. So I think that translation, that motivation, inspiration, creating that common vibe we are spending so much time in our organizations together. And if we can't motivate each other and inspire each other to be more joyful, to be more fulfilled, why are we doing any of this?
I mean, it's such a selling point, especially these days when everybody's talking about burnout and everybody's talking about wellness, and like the world is like that meme where you're sitting at the table and everything's on fire around you. That I'll say it again for all of you. That I often have people come to me who want to be on my podcast, but it's very rare for me to be like, "Come, I want you to be on my podcast." And I was like, "Oh, I need my folks to hear about this," because I think as we navigate the world, our workplaces, yes, and I also think the world,
Yes.
whether the microcosm of our families and as all the different pieces, like this is going to be key for our grit and resilience. So all of you, I rarely do this, but I'm going to say to you, like if I have a lot of lawyers who are listening, we have a huge, wellness deficiency in our profession, and we have a huge, high rates of suicide, high rates of depression, high rates of
Yep.
all of the things that we're talking about, and to find some ways to navigate and to do this better is such a helpful thing. So your homework post this is to tell everybody about this so that folks can have Pallavi come into their organizations and help. And I do think that this is going to be such a key piece. But before we close, and I knew this was going to go quickly, I want to ask you a couple of things that are important that I have to ask everybody, which is number one, I know that you just talked about how you transform organizations and the things that you've done, but what do you do for fun?
I do for fun different things at different times.
Mm-hmm.
I actually found this adventurous person in me. This is, again, I
Oh,
don't want to take too much time, but
no.
I have to tell this,
Yes,
tell
please.
this to everybody. So I was always fearful of everything, okay? Of heights, of water, of anything that you can imagine. I was the one with going with my family, and then they're on these rides, and I'm the one taking pictures because I'm just afraid to even them asking me to go on the ride, okay?
Oh. Hmm.
But I will tell you, this lead from within stuff
Hmm.
and the ATM framework and everything that I have learned in my life,
Yeah.
you won't believe this, okay? So last year, I went to Disney World with my two kids, okay? I
Hmm.
went for them. And I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to apply my framework and I'm going to just go with that, okay?
Hmm.
I did every single ride in the four Disney parks. Every
I,
single.
I'm traumatized thinking about that. Just throwing it.
And
Wow.
I know my husband is going to say, those are not real roller coasters. Well, they were for me
Ew,
because I
right.
have
For
never
sure.
ridden any ride, okay,
Right.
in my life.
Wow.
And I did all of them, hands down, all four Disney parks. And you have no idea, when the first time I did it,
Hmm.
I still remember that feeling. I was walking, and it was the Guardians of the Galaxy ride, and I was walking out,
Hmm.
and my kids, everybody was saying something. I was not listening anything. I was so happy. I
Hmm.
felt like you have achieved something, because this was
Yeah.
something, always something that I could never do.
A
And then
breakthrough.
when I did it,
Hmm.
it felt amazing. And that's when I truly, like, that's another testament for all of you too who are listening. Like, there is power to really give in into the present moment, to
Yeah.
just welcome life. How I'm not saying go and take rides. That was just my fear. And I
Yeah.
could just snap out of it because it was all self-made. It was all within me.
Mm. I had a similar experience when I turned 40, which was I became a zip line lover. So I always knew that I wasn't going to do like a bungee jump. Like I was like, I'm never going to throw myself off or anything. That's
Uh-huh.
never
Yeah, some things are off the table for me too.
Right. I'm too much of a lawyer for that. Right. I'm that person who's like, yeah, I'll fill out this thing, but I'm crossing this out and crossing that out. Right. But when I turned 40, I went on a trip with one of my girlfriends to Mexico, and they had a zip line, and they were like, you want to do the zip line? And I don't know, it was like a crazy magical feeling came over me. And it was like, yes. And when I was done, and for those of you who are like, well, I see a picture, if you if you go and look at my annual, I do a photo every year with my word of the year, but that year it's me on the zip line because I was like, somebody has to get a picture of the fact that this is happening. It's so powerful when you do things that you're scared of and realize that you were in the way as opposed to it being right a thing that you couldn't do.
That power is within you.
Hmm.
It's just you
Hmm.
need to tap into it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it may mean different for different things. It may mean, for some people, it could be, oh, I can never ask for what I want.
Mm.
Start
Mhm.
small.
Yep.
Start small. Start asking for some things that doesn't matter. Go to airport, ask for people something that you were never going to see again, or whatever, right? Do it where you're not afraid of getting a rejection.
Right.
So
Right.
whatever that means for you, but
Right.
know that that power is, everything is within you. You just need to tap into it,
Mm.
knowing what truly matters to you, and it's there.
Well, speaking of what truly matters to you, one of the questions that I ask everyone is, what is the aspect of your personal brand that you will never compromise on?
I think I can never do a check the box exercise.
Hmm. Hmm.
I just can't.
Hmm.
I feel or believe, if I feel or believe that what I'm doing, what I'm offering is not having a positive impact on me and those around me, I
Hmm.
will not do it.
I love it.
I just can't do it.
And that's, I mean, again, we're talking about all the things that have been imbued in us as folks. Setting boundaries is not necessarily one of them, particularly when for women and particularly for women of color, that has never been the case. And I love this new momentum of people being like, actually, no, right? Okay, so branding room only is a play on the term standing room only because everybody knows I'm clever. And so I ask everyone this. What is something where people would be in a room with only standing room to experience that magic about you? What's that magic?
I would love to ask that question from people who are around me. But I think I think I am pretty genuine in a way that I cannot make up stuff. If
Hmm.
I don't like you, you will know. If I like you, you will know. So like I cannot pretend. I
Yeah.
just can't. And sometimes that comes to bite me. And I've gotten better with that professional look. But
Yeah.
generally, like you
Yeah.
will get my vibe. And I think that's what I want to create anyways. I want to create true partnerships with people who see me with how I am and what I bring. And I will do anything for anybody for love. That I
Mhm.
always tell, all my loved ones know that. Like that's all I need. And if I feel your love, if I feel that, you're here to support or that you need me, I'll be there for you. So yeah, I think just being genuine and just being there in that moment and making the other people feel seen and valued,
Yeah.
I think that's important for me.
I love that. And I love the vibe comment. So speaking of, how can people know more about you and your vibe? How can folks find out more about you and your work?
Absolutely. They can find me on my website, which
Mhm.
is pallavi-jain.com. They can also find me on LinkedIn, where I'm pretty active now. I didn't used to be, but I'm getting better.
Good.
And you can even get my email, and they can reach me any of these platforms. And I would love to hear more from people, their stories, and how can I in any way support them and make their life a little bit more magical than what it may already be.
I love that. So everybody make sure you tell a friend, an enemy, a colleague, whoever about this podcast so they can start exploring how they can start to lead from within. Thank you for being on the podcast. I really appreciated the conversation. Everyone, like I said, download, like, share, tell a friend about this wonderful conversation, and I will see you all next time. Bye.
Thank you so much.